There comes a moment in a man's life when the ground beneath him quietly admits a truth. He's spent years avoiding. The life he's been living is too small for him. It happens without ceremony, no dramatic storm, no divine announcement, just a quiet fracture in the armor you've worn for far too long. And in that moment, pain steps forward, not as punishment, but as the first honest messenger you've met in years. It strikes you with a cold hand, tearing away illusion, dragging your face to the mirror you've been afraid to look into. You feel something ancient stirring inside you, something that refuses to let you hide anymore, something that has waited patiently for the wound that wakes you up. Musashi knew this moment well. Before he became the figure history bows to, he was a young man swallowed by defeat, humiliated by the weight of his own untested ego. His early losses were not the tragedies people imagine. They were awakenings. They cracked his pride open like a shell and revealed the soft, unshaped core beneath. Every man carries this same unshaped core, and every man, at some point, is forced to confront it. Pain does not care about your excuses. It does not negotiate with your self-image. It shows you the truth without blinking. And that truth is sharp enough to draw blood. But here is the divide the line few cross. Some men collapse beneath the weight of that truth, breaking into smaller versions of themselves, hiding their wound beneath distraction and noise. Others, however, step closer to the pain, sensing its strange invitation. They realize that pain has two faces, one that destroys and one that reveals. Most men run. Few walk toward it. Fewer still let it carve them open so something real can emerge. And that is why the world is filled with half-formed men clinging to comfort, terrified of the very thing that could make them powerful. Pain is not the enemy. Pain is the doorway. But only a man willing to bleed for his own becoming will ever walk through it. If pain is the doorway, the fire beyond it is the forge. Ancient warriors knew this intimately. They understood that a man does not become sharp through praise, nor strong through ease. Steel becomes steel only through heat and hammering, and so does a man. Every strike from life's invisible hammer shapes you, exposes you, removes what is weak, fake, or borrowed. Yet modern men, surrounded by soft comforts and glowing distractions, flee from the very furnace that could carve them into something unbreakable. You've been taught to avoid discomfort, to drown confusion in noise, to call the mask your face because removing it feels like death, and in a way, it is. The symbolic death of the boy must come before the emergence of the man. The boy inside you clings to praise, to reassurance, to the idea that someone else will validate his worth. The man knows no such illusions, and the transformation between the two does not happen through calm conversations or gentle realizations. It happens through fire, through the moments you feel lost, stripped bare, unsure of who you are, through the nights when your chest aches with the weight of everything you've avoided. Comfort preserves the boy's mask. Pain tears it off. Musashi walked through this fire for years. After leaving behind home, status, safety, and familiarity, he stepped into wandering a life without anchors, without applause, without an audience. Hunger carved discipline into him. Isolation burned away his vanity. Defeat dismantled his illusions. His ego was not polished, was scorched until the false self crumbled into ash. When a man is left with nothing but what is real, he begins to understand himself. You, too, must walk into that fire, not because suffering is noble, but because it is necessary. Because everything weak within you will cling until it is forced to let go. Because the steam of your former self must rise and disappear before the blade beneath is revealed. The world teaches you to avoid pain. Musashi teaches you to walk toward. The fire does not destroy the real man. It destroys everything that keeps him from appearing. There is a paradox buried beneath every strong man's story. You cannot become capable until you have confronted your own incapability. The world worships victory, but a man's true turning point is almost always found in loss. Defeat is not the end, it is initiation. It is the moment the universe whispers, "You are not who you think you are. Not yet." And while weak men recoil from that whisper, strong men bow their heads in humility and listen. Every loss slices away arrogance. Every failure sharpens intuition. Every collapse deepens your ability to see without illusion. Musashi lived this truth with an almost brutal honesty. He allowed himself to be humbled by opponents stronger than him, by terrain harsher than his preparation, by hunger that tested the marrow of his resolve, by long nights of isolation, where the only enemy left was the self he feared to face. He embraced the fact that losing was part of the path, not an interruption of it. A man who refuses to lose refuses to grow, but a man who accepts loss as a sculptor becomes someone the world cannot break. Resistance to loss is resistance to evolution. You have spent years trying to maintain your image, protect your pride, and shield yourself from embarrassment. But every layer you protect becomes a barrier that keeps the real you trapped inside. The moment you stop fearing ruin, you begin to taste freedom. The moment you allow the possibility of failure to coexist with the desire for mastery, you unlock a quiet power few men ever touch. Loss cleanses. Loss reveals. Loss builds the internal architecture of a man who no longer needs approval to stand tall. You do not become unshakable by winning every battle. You become unshakable by surviving the ones that tear you open. The battle you must lose is the battle against truth. Once you surrender to it, something profound begins to shift. You stop chasing the man you want to appear to be and start becoming the man you were meant to be. Pain does something strange when you stop trying to run from it. It slows the world down. It pulls you into the present moment with a gravity that cannot be faked. When everything hurts, distractions lose their flavor, noise loses its power, and only what is real remains. Pain becomes a doorway to presence. A man who can sit inside his suffering without reaching for escape learns a rare form of stillness, the kind that turns fear into observation and chaos into clarity. Ancient monks and warriors knew this well. They placed themselves in discomfort deliberately, sitting in the cold, fasting through hunger, holding impossible postures until their muscles shook, not for punishment, but for training. They understood that a man who cannot sit with himself cannot lead himself. They knew that discipline is not found in movement, but in stillness, the ability to stay, to endure, to remain awake inside the storm. But modern life has stolen this right from men. You live in an era where overstimulation is constant, where silence feels threatening, where sitting alone with your thoughts is more terrifying than any battlefield. Your mind has become a crowded marketplace, loud with opinions, anxieties, expectations, and comparisons. And because you never allow yourself to sit in the quiet, your inner storms keep ruling you. Musashi, before duels, practiced stillness with the dedication of a monk. He centered himself before any blade was drawn. He learned to meet the storm inside before facing the storm outside. His calm was not gifted, it was earned through pain, discipline, and the courage to confront every trembling part within him. This is the masculine right. You have forgotten, staying calm while everything aches, sitting still when your instinct is to run, listening to the quiet voice beneath the noise. When a man learns to be still inside pain, the world loses its ability to disturb him. He becomes grounded, steady, anchored, not because life is gentle, but because he is no longer afraid of the fire within. There is a moment in every man's journey when the facade cracks completely, when the old identity crafted from childhood beliefs, borrowed labels, and unexamined desires can no longer carry the weight of who you are becoming. This is the masculine rupture, the breaking point where the story you've been living collapses under its own falseness. It feels like destruction, but it is transformation disguised as ruin. This collapse is not graceful. It arrives like a storm that rips through the internal structures you thought were permanent. You begin questioning your worth, your path, your role in the world. The ambitions you clung to no longer feel alive. The routines that once comforted you turn hollow. The man you thought you were begins to dissolve. And this dissolution is terrifying because identity, even a false one, feels safer than the unknown that follows. Musashi understood this deeply. At one point he abandoned everything: titles, comfort, status, formality, and the identity society tried to shape for him. He walked away not because he was lost, but because he was shedding. The world saw a man wandering, but he was undergoing a profound internal rebirth. When a man releases who he was told to be, he becomes free to discover who he truly is. But this freedom comes with solitude. Becoming someone new means becoming someone no one else recognizes yet. Your relationships shift. Your environment resists. People around you grow uncomfortable because your transformation reminds them of their stagnation. You feel alone not because you are failing, but because you are evolving into a man who no longer fits into the shell he once lived in. The breaking point is the birthplace of the real self. It is the collapse that precedes clarity, the death that precedes rebirth. You cannot carry your old identity into your new life. You must let it shatter. You must allow the pieces to fall without trying to save them, because only from the ruins of who you once were can the man you are meant to become finally stand. Once the old identity dies, a new burden emerges, the loneliness of becoming a man who walks a path few can comprehend. This is the price of authenticity, the quiet pain of standing apart. Society rewards conformity. It praises familiarity. It fears anyone whose steps echo with personal truth rather than collective expectation. And so the man who follows his own path must accept the cost of being misunderstood. There is a deep tension between personal truth and social approval. Most men surrender their truth to avoid disappointing others. They dim themselves to stay accepted. They bend their spine to remain liked. The fear of being judged becomes stronger than the fear of living falsely. But a man who betrays himself to earn comfort is not living. He is performing. Musashi refused to perform. His solitary path was not rebellion, it was alignment. He rejected imitation, refused to mirror other warriors, and walked into the wilderness of his own becoming. People called him strange, arrogant, unpredictable, but he understood that following another man's script is spiritual death, and so he chose isolation over imitation, truth over approval. Modern men fear this more than anything. Not physical pain, not struggle, not effort, but the emotional toll of being seen as different. The quiet sting of walking alone. The ache of realizing no one can fully understand the path you must take. But this ache is not a curse, it is initiation. A man who seeks to become real must learn to withstand the silence that surrounds his transformation. You will feel the weight of it. The distance between you and who you used to be. The gap between your truth and everyone else's expectations. But this pain is sacred. It is the cost of becoming a man who stands on his own feet. A man who no longer asks for permission to exist. A man whose path is carved, not by applause, but by inner necessity. Pain is the price of becoming someone the world cannot define. After the fire, the loss, the breaking, and the lonely ascent into your own truth, something begins to shift within you, slowly at first, then unmistakably. You begin to feel a clarity that does not depend on mood or circumstance. It settles into your bones like a quiet certainty, the kind that does not need announcement or validation. This is the birth of the real man. Suffering carves lines inside the soul that cannot be faked. It strips away illusions so thoroughly that what remains is something dense, grounded, and unmistakably alive. You start moving differently, not with aggression, but with intention. Your presence becomes heavier, calmer, unshakable. People notice it even if they cannot describe it. They sense a man who has faced himself and come out intact. Musashi reached this state not through victory, but through understanding. In his later years, He no longer sought triumph or recognition. He no longer fought to prove anything, not even to himself. He became a man whose blade was guided by truth, not ego. A man who saw through the noise of life as if it were a thin fog. A man who no longer feared pain because he had walked through deeper fires than the world could offer. This same transformation begins in you when you stop seeing pain as an enemy, when you understand it instead as a compass, a teacher that exposes the direction you must go. Pain becomes less of a wound and more of a signal. And the man who learns to read this signal gains an internal map that cannot be taken from him. You will notice the shift in your reflections. The man staring back at you will have eyes that carry storms but do not tremble. Your voice will become slower, more deliberate, shaped by experience rather than insecurity. Your actions will be cleaner, less desperate, driven not by the need to impress, but by the need to remain aligned with the truth you fought to claim. The real man is not found. He is forged. He is constructed from the ruins of who you used to be. And when he finally emerged quiet, steady, unmovably, realize all the pain was not punishment. It was preparation. It was the necessary breaking that made you whole. At the end of every man's journey, one truth stands alone. You do not escape pain. You only choose its form. You will face the pain of discipline or the pain of regret, the pain of growth or the pain of decay, the pain of walking your own path or the pain of living someone else's life. There is no path without suffering, only the choice of which suffering will shape you. Musashi's life stands as testimony to this. He did not wait for hardship to find him, he walked toward it. He understood that voluntary struggle sharpens destiny, that a man who chooses his pain becomes the architect of his life, not the victim of it. Every cold morning he rose with purpose. Every duel he stepped into with clarity. Every lonely night was a deliberate offering to the man he was becoming. He chose the pain that purified him, and in doing so, shaped a legend that still breathes centuries later. Modern men have forgotten this. You live in a world that promises comfort at every corner, convenience, distraction, softness. But these comforts come with a hidden cost. The slow erosion of your strength, your clarity, your fire. To reclaim your life, you must reclaim your willingness to suffer for what matters. Not randomly, not recklessly, but deliberately. This is the pain you must choose. The pain of cold mornings when your mind begs for warmth. The pain of honest reflection when your ego clings to lies. The pain of relentless self-confrontation when avoidance feels easier. The pain of taking responsibility for every corner of your life. The pain of walking a path your former self would fear. A man who chooses comfort chooses decay. A man who chooses the right pain chooses transformation. Becoming real is not accidental. It is not a gift. It is not destiny handed down by fate. It is chosen day after day, breath after breath, until the man you are meant to be stands undeniable within you. You know what must be done. The path is not gentle, but it is true. Choose your pain wisely. Choose the one that allows the real you to be born.